All right, let's dive into something you've probably seen a million times. You know how some people land a huge win and throw a massive party, right? But then others, they get the same exact win and just give a quiet little nod. Today, we're going to unpack what's really going on there and what it tells us about the real secret to motivation.
I mean, picture this. Two people, they both get their absolute dream job. Person A is popping champagne, calling everyone they know. Person B, they just sit back with this quiet, satisfied smile. Now, our first instinct, almost always, is to think, wow, person A is so much more passionate. But what if that's totally wrong? Let's dig in and find out what's really driving them. So, first things first, let's get one thing straight. This difference, it is super common. And it has absolutely nothing to do with one person caring more or being better than the other. Nope, it's really all about how we're fundamentally wired. Okay, so on the one hand, you've got that big, excited reaction. It's what we see in movies, right? It's loud, it's energetic, and we immediately think, that's passion. But then you have the calm reaction. It's steady, composed, satisfied. And this is where we get it wrong. It's so easy to look at that person and think, do they even care? But oh, the real story is way more interesting than that. So what gives? What's actually happening inside our heads, in our brains, and in our psychology? Well, it turns out there are a handful of key reasons that explain these totally different reactions. Yeah, we can basically break it all down into four big categories. First, our brain's reward systems. Second, our personality. Third, how we think about our goals. And finally, how we manage our own expectations. Okay, first up, brain chemistry. It all comes down to dopamine. You know, that feel-good chemical our brain releases when we accomplish something. Now, for some of us, our brains are just super sensitive to that dopamine hit. A win feels like this incredible, exciting rush. But for others, their brain is more like a thermostat, always trying to keep things in balance. That's called homeostasis. For them, success isn't some wild surprise party. It's more like a plan coming together exactly as it should. It's a satisfying click back to a calm, expected state. Next, we've got personality, and this one probably makes a lot of sense. You know, extroverts, they get their energy from being around others and expressing themselves, so of course they're more likely to celebrate out loud. But here's the thing, introverts, or even just people who are really good at managing their emotions, they can feel the exact same amount of happiness and pride, they just process it on the inside, away from all the noise. Now this next one is really fascinating. It's all about your goal orientation. Ask yourself this, are you more result-driven or process-driven? If you're all about the result, your eyes are on the prize, the trophy, the promotion, that finish line. So when you finally get it, bam, it's this huge moment. But if you're process-driven, you actually get your joy from the journey itself, the puzzle solving, the learning, the daily grind. For you, the final win is just the logical conclusion to a process you already loved. And last but not least, it comes down to simple expectation. I mean, think about it. If you've been putting in the work and you absolutely expect to succeed, then when you do, it's not a shock. It's just confirmation. It feels normal. The real fireworks, that huge explosive excitement, that usually comes from a surprise win. You know, the one you thought was a total long shot. Okay, so we've looked at the why behind the different reactions, but this all leads to a much bigger, much more important question about what motivation really is. So let's just ask it straight up. Who's actually more motivated? The person jumping up and down or the calm, quiet one? I mean, everything in our culture tells us it's the excited one, right? You can see their passion. But is that the real answer? And here's the twist. The answer is not necessarily the excited one. In fact, a lot of the time, especially when we're talking about really long-term goals, it's actually the opposite. So to really get our heads around this, we need to look at two totally different kinds of motivation, two different types of drive. And this table just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you've got excitement-driven motivation. Its fuel is pure emotion. It's amazing for short bursts, right? Like cramming for a final exam or going all out in a single competition. But its big weakness, it's super unstable. If you don't feel like it, you just don't do it. Now, on the other side, you've got calm-driven motivation. This isn't fueled by feelings, it's fueled by systems and habits. It's built for the long haul, the marathons, building a career, getting fit for life, mastering a new skill. And its superpower is just rock-solid consistency. Here's a really simple way to picture it. Excitement-driven motivation, it's like a firework, It's brilliant, it's powerful, it's this huge burst of light that everyone looks at and says, wow, but then it's gone. But that calm-driven motivation, that's more like a river. It doesn't have that big, dramatic explosion, but it's steady, it's relentless. And over the long haul, that quiet, consistent force can literally carve canyons. Yeah, the little voice inside the head of someone with this kind of motivation isn't shouting, let's go. It's not about hype. It's a much quieter, more determined voice that just says, this is what we do. Time to get to work. Let's keep going.
And who are the people who run on this kind of fuel? Well, think about top scientists spending decades in a lab, or elite engineers building something incredibly complex, or entrepreneurs who build a company not for a quick flip, but over 20 or 30 years. These people simply can't rely on feeling hyped up every single day. Their success is built on a bedrock of discipline and pure habit.
Which brings us to the big idea, the main takeaway from all of this. It's really about completely redefining how we think about motivation.
And the takeaway is actually pretty simple. If you're one of those people who stays calm after a big win, please do not think for a second that it means you lack drive. And just as important, don't judge it in other people. That quiet coworker who just puts their head down and gets the job done, they might just be the most motivated person you know.
If we had to boil this entire thing down to a simple formula, it would be this. Excitement does not equal stronger motivation. One is just a feeling, an emotion that comes and goes. The other is a deep commitment to just keep going.
So in the end, the truest sign of powerful motivation isn't the loud celebration at the finish line. It's the quiet, consistent action you take day in and day out, especially when nobody's watching. That is the real engine of success.